Ever get a pebble stuck in your shoe? It can be annoying for sure, but even the smallest rocks can teach us a big lesson. To learn a little more, I invited Kevin Magee, president of the Cleveland Geological Society, to rock it out in the studio. I started by asking him, what exactly is geology?
So geology is technically the study of rocks, but I really look at it as the study of the Earth's history. The rocks, when they were laid down, the minerals were deposited, the world was very different than it was now. And they can tell us a lot about what the Earth looked like when those rocks were put down on the surface.
Neat. So you brought in a lot of Ohio rocks. So if we look at them like clues, we can find out some more about Ohio's history.
We can tell what Ohio was like back 200, 300, 400 million years ago.
Awesome. Well, let's get digging.
Okay. So we have sandstone. This is Brea sandstone from just south of Cleveland in Brea, Ohio. And at the time when this rock was laid down, we were a river delta. With the division between the ocean and the land, we were right on the edge, and big rivers were carrying eroded rock from big mountains that no longer exist in Canada to the north down here and deposited as rivers went into the ocean. And then this right here is coal, and the coal was deposited when we were more inland. We were swamps, and again, south of the equator, 300 million years ago, and it's all ferns and trees that don't exist today, all dead and compacted and forming coal. And then we have salt here. Salt was laid down in the Silurian about 425 million years ago. And the salt was from this area being an ocean and then being dried up, and then an ocean, then drying up, and then an ocean. And we just got layer upon layer upon layer of salt. And some of it is light colored, some of it's dark colored, depending on the minerals that were in the water when the salt evaporated or when the water evaporated.
And so this isn't the kind of salt I could put on my French fries?
No, I don't recommend putting it on your French fries. It's not the type of salt you eat, but it's very similar related, and it's wonderful for road salt.
A lot of the salt that we see in the wintertime getting spread on the roads is from right here in Ohio.
That's where it comes from, 2,000 feet under Lake Erie in Cleveland.
Neat. What about this next guy?
So that is world famous Cleveland Shale. It's a very black, flaky rock, and it tells us that the world back then was under 300 or 400 foot of ocean, at least here in Ohio. And it was interesting because it was a stagnant sea. There was no oxygen on the bottom of the sea, and nothing could live there. And it forms a very dark rock when it does that. But we know that there was life in the upper waters because large fish like Dunkleosteus, the big armored fish, when it died, would drift to the bottom of the sea and get buried and fossilized. And so we know that there were animals living in the upper waters, but in the lower waters, it was just all black, silty rock stuff that eventually became rock.
Oh, wow. And how about this one? Because this guy's got some interesting kind of seashells in it.
It does. Yeah, this is limestone, 400 to 450 million years old. And it actually has all sorts of little creatures in it. Some you can't even see, little diatoms, things that live in the water. And when they die, they drift to the bottom. They form a lime mud. And then within that, there's also corals and shells and things like that. And they all eventually get turned into rock together.
And what do some of these rocks get used for today?
So limestone you see a lot on gravel driveways, on breakwalls along the lakefront. For the sandstone, it was used a lot in the past for grindstones and also for buildings. You would see it in building materials and even making curbs. They used it for curbs as well.
And then what about the shale? What is that used for?
There really is nothing that shale is used for. It's just too flaky and too soft, and so it just sits there. Nobody uses it for anything.
Well, we can use it for figuring out more about Ohio's history.
Yeah, you know, it does.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming in. It's been really interesting.
Thank you. My pleasure.